It's raining.
Yeah.
Should we go inside and start the fire?
Yeah.
Getting wet.
Yeah.
Come on, quick. Let's go. Come on then. You want to go play outside?
It's raining. I have an umbrella.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow. You're drawing. Alright guys, so I'm going to run through Ben and Ciannes' wedding. We're not going to edit the whole thing because that would just take too long and the process is the same. But I've culled a sneak peek for this wedding. Some of you guys that have been following along for a while would have seen a lot of these images in my A7 III versus this A7R3 video, because these were pretty much all shot on the A7 III. So this first shot, as you can see, I've exposed it for the highlights because, I don't know, I just liked how they were in the sun there. At the top of the stairs, grandma with her dog, they were pretty cool. So first off, I'm just going to apply the preset. So as you can see, it's gone quite dark, but I've shot it so that I recover all these highlights. So what we're going to do is bring up the shadows a touch, and I'd probably just clone out this little sunspot, and I'm pretty happy with that. So move on to the next one. Now most of the time I use this universal preset CTM3. CTM1 was the preset I was using originally, and then I just changed up the greens and the blues and stuff. It's not quite as warm as CTM1, but I find it works in more situations. This is a cool two-piece dress she had. So that's about it. I'm just using the plus and the minus for the exposure adjustment as well. Now because I know that I'm going to use CTM3 for pretty much the whole wedding, there's not many situations where I'd change it, but usually I'd edit a few images first, just see if I like the way that the image is feeling, and then I'll just sync the whole thing. So what I'm going to do now is just go back into them, select all of the images. Now that I have the images selected, we're just going to go through and sync them all. So one thing I do through the day is usually I'll underexpose by about half a stop, sometimes one stop or more depending on the situation and the highlights, but just to keep the natural tones. And yeah, so I know most of these images are going to be a little bit underexposed. So this one, I've put it on +5 exposure, half a stop. So I'm going to sync that along with everything else other than white balance. So that's synced all those files. So now we can just go through, and really all I'm doing is adjusting exposure, making sure everything's straight. So moving on to the next one. As you can see, I'll just brighten that a little bit more, and then I'll just bring the highlights back down so you can see the cloud outside. And then I'll just press R to rotate and just straighten that up just a touch. And I'm just really lining up the photo with the door here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like this weird gradient that happens. It goes away once you go in and then zoom back out, and it's perfectly fine. But it's really annoying, and I can't seem to get Lightroom to stop doing that. If you guys know how to fix that, let me know in a comment below and I'll do that. So moving on to the next photo, and again you can see it here. I really don't like this. Like I said, it goes away once you zoom in and then zoom back out again, but it's really frustrating and I don't like seeing that. But there's not much I can do about it. Anyways, moving on, just straightening it out again. I try to get as much as possible right in the camera because cropping and straightening doubles any editing time that you might have. Next up, I might just remove this light because it's the only one and it's kind of irritating. I'd say that's about it. I'm going to say that one's pretty much done. Again, pretty much done. So like I said, these aren't edited, I've just synced them. So once you've got your shooting style down and you know that you can shoot consistently to a certain kind of exposure level, and you're able to just go through and sync everything, and you can see it speeds up the process pretty fast. Now this shot, I just went outside because it started raining and I wanted to show a little bit of the environment, so I'm just going to bring the highlights down a little bit and then darken the exposure just to get some of that back in the clouds, and maybe bring the shadows up a touch. I think temperature's about right. Again, moving on. It's just a little bit cold, I think. And I might darken it back down a touch. Yeah, it looks good. I'm pretty happy with that. No real adjustments needed. If I was going to go back and redo this shot, I'd probably go back and just move these presents out of the way. You can quite easily Photoshop these out, but we won't get into that in this video because, you know, this is just a basic sort of how I edit my photos in Lightroom. This one, I'm just going to darken it a little bit, and it's obviously a little bit too warm. So I'll just cool that down a touch. Sometimes I'll use auto white balance and just shift Command U, but I find, yeah, so it's too warm. Most of the time it just comes out too warm and I'm not overly happy with it. So this one, I'm quite happy with the exposure here, but on the left side of the image here, all I'm going to do is use this grad tool and bring that up a touch. Like so. God, that gradient annoys me. And I'm going to say that's done. Now this one, I'm just going to use the radial filter just to bring the exposure up on the back of her hair a little bit. Like so. So this one I've gone a little bit too bright, so we'll just darken that down. Maybe bring the highlights down a touch. So with lens corrections, usually I do use it, but with this combo, I never used the 24mm and the A7R3 together, so it's not going to remember this preset that I saved. But all I do is go into it and click Enable Profile Corrections. Then all I'm going to do is just bring the vignette down again, because I like adding that back in there. Put it about 30. And then if you go here to Setup and click Save as New Lens Profile Default, now every time you do that, it's going to correct the distortion and just correct the vignetting a little bit. Next image. This one I was just shooting down the stairs because she was about to come up and reveal herself to her friends who have never seen her in a dress before. So we'll just warm that one up a touch, about there. Looks good. Same again. So you can see the before and after. The presets just really bring out the tones but keep the whites clean and stuff like that as well. So that one I've gone under quite a bit. Just bring the shadows up a touch. Cool. So that's done. This one will make a good black and white. With my black and white preset, it's really made to stay the same exposure that you set when you're using my color preset. So if you've edited the images in color and you apply the black and white preset, you shouldn't have to go back and readjust the exposure. I'm really happy with that one. I might just crop out this fella on the right because he's got a little bit of a funny expression going on. So in this shot I'm shooting, I've sort of ducked down and I'm shooting over the rail. And other shots like this next one, I'm shooting through the guys just to create a little bit of depth. I think this will be a good black and white as well. Maybe just bring the shadows up a little bit. Highlights down, oh, too blown out. Maybe just straighten that a little bit. There we go. This one just really needs a white balance adjustment and then bring the highlights down a touch. And this one I just got one of the groomsmen looking out the window, checking out the rain. The girls were just about to pull in the driveway, so it's just kind of setting the scene. More of a storyteller shot, I guess. Again, straight out of the camera from before and after. Just adding those tones and then just bring the exposure up a touch and I'm going to say that's done. This one, when I edited this shot, I'm just going to bring it up a little bit more. And then again, I just used the radial filter tool just to bring up her sister Gypsy here in the other seat. There we go. And you can see it just makes that little bit of difference there. Another shot here, we're just waiting for the bride to get out of the car and the rain stopped and then this rainbow came out. So I stopped down to about f4 on my 24mm just to get the rainbow. This one we're going to play with a little bit just to get it about right because we want it moody, but we also want to be able to see detail and stuff like that. So I'm just going to add a little bit of vibrance back in, and yeah, I'm going to say that's good. So I'm just going to straighten this one up a little bit again, and just paying attention to that line in the middle and how they're standing. And then I'll bring it up again, straighten that. In the final edit of this photo, I'll probably edit out my second shooter there, which will be really easy. Next photo. It's a nice one of Ben watching his soon-to-be wife walking down the aisle. This one is on the A7R3 with my 85mm G Master, I believe. Yeah, and we'll actually make this one black and white too. With this shot, because I'm shooting into the sun a little bit and it's lost a little bit of contrast, I'm just going to add a little bit back in here, like so. Next photo. With a shot like this, I have time, so I'll just get down, I'll have my level in the viewfinder and just get it as straight as possible, and then I really don't have to play with it after. So you can see how the presets just brought out the yellows and the oranges, but still keeping skin tones natural, which is a big thing. This one I've gone a bit too far under. So we'll just bring that up, almost 2 stops. And yeah, well, I think we'll leave it like that. We'll just bring it over a little bit so Dad's still in the shot. First kiss, you can see this one I've gotten a little bit crooked because you sort of run up there last minute and shoot it. So we'll straighten that up, bring the exposure up a touch, bring the highlights down, just to bring some detail back into that stained glass. And this shot, what I've done is I've got one with them out of focus, just so I can get all the reactions of everybody clapping and having a good time. And then the next shot is focused on them. There is more shots obviously as well, but these are the 2 I chose for the sneak peek. It's the grandmas handing out the flowers. So I think you get the idea how quick it is once you've synced everything and your exposure is pretty accurate within the camera. So again, just 2 clicks on the keyboard on the plus just to bring that up just a touch more. It's another shot when I was just walking out of the church after the bridal party and the grandmas threw the flowers at me, which is pretty cool. So as you can see, these are all pretty much done. This one I just sort of got like an environmental shot showing everybody having the afternoon tea in the church and just getting a little bit of the architecture around. Moving on to the next shot, we've got the big group photo here. I'm just going to straighten this one out, brighten that up a touch. It was pretty grainy because I shot at 8000 ISO, but came out fine. This is when we're doing the family photos and everybody's just sitting waiting for their turn, so I just sort of pay attention and just get little action shots of who's just chilling out in the background having some fun. This is after the ceremony when we went off for the bridal shoot. So as you can see guys, this is all the same preset. I haven't changed anything. All we're doing is literally going through and using the plus and minus and making sure things are straight. So in this next shot you can see that the horizon's a little bit crooked, so we'll just go ahead and straighten that up. And it's too dark and a little bit too cold. Warm that up. This one I might actually use the radio filter tool again and just add about half a stop, like so. You can see when you make it wide like that, it's not so much visible. You can't really tell that you've used a radio filter. It's much better than the brush and it just looks more natural. Next shot here, just a close-up of them being close together. Don't really feel I need to do anything else to that. This one I've clearly shot quite underexposed just to get that sky in the background looking epic. So I will just bring that back up, add a little bit more warmth, and then bring the shadows up. about there. Make sure that horizon's straight. Yeah, it looks good. So moving on to the next shot here, we just got the guys having some fun, popping some champagne. The white balance was quite challenging in this situation because it was really quite cold for some reason. You can see I'm at like 9,000, 9.5. Sometimes I'll just zoom in and make sure that their skin looks well, you know, the white balance is good on their skin. And I'm gonna say that's about right. And then when you zoom out, it may not be perfect, but it's about as good as you can get with the situation that you had. This was a funny shot of the best man running off with the bride and then the groom being chasing after him. They were a really fun bridal party. In this shot you can see I didn't really pay attention good enough when I was lining up the building, nowhere near good enough. So we're going to use the transform tool and go through and correct that all. First we'll just correct the white balance. Maybe we'll try auto in this situation. No. Bright, warm that up a little bit, bring the highlights down, and then we'll go through to the transform tool and click constrain crop. I'll try auto on this one, and that works pretty much perfect. It doesn't always work that way, so give it a go and see how it works for yourself. So you can see because I haven't shot it right in the first place, after cropping it I've lost quite a bit of the photo, but next time I'll have to pay more attention. Nice little shot of them having a cuddle with the sun in the background there. Just bring the tint up. Like that. And I'll just center them a little bit more. Maybe add a little bit of color back in. That's better. So this next shot, we just went to the cafe after the bridal shoot because everybody was still setting up in the reception. We were pretty early, so I just got a shot of them getting out of the Jeep and walking across the road to the cafe. So we'll just bring that up a little bit, warm it up a touch. These shots, we just got a few, it was really cold outside, so I just quickly got a couple more of just them two on the beach while the bridal party went back to the reception just before we went in. So as you can see, it's quite cold temperature wise now as well, so we'll straighten that up, warm it up a touch, and maybe just adjust that exposure a little bit more. And then this next shot down here, you can see it's pretty much the same, so I'm just going to sync that with the white balance. And when we move across, it's pretty much done, so just make sure that's level. Yeah, really happy with that one. Then we went to the reception, got a couple of detail shots. I didn't really include many in this sneak peek because it's more of something I'll add in the whole entire album. Obviously I took a lot more, but I did get a photo of these Hobbit drinks that these guys like, and they obviously mean something to them, so I got a photo of that. And then just the bride and groom walking in. Again, I'm just going through and adjusting the exposure. So this shot was just before the speeches while everybody sat down. I just kind of got an environmental shot just to sort of set the scene, I guess. And then going through the speeches themselves. A shot of the groom's brother. I will try and shoot a lot of people's reactions to the speeches as well, something funny happening, or if people are getting emotional, then I'll try and focus on the people in the background as well as not just who's in the bridal party. The groom's speech to his new wife. Again, just going through and decreasing or increasing the exposure with the plus or minus keys. And onto the dancing. This shot I'm going to convert to black and white actually, because that's what I'd done in the sneak peek. Some fun shots of the bridal party dancing together. Ben and his mum. And Ben and his grandma dancing. This one's a little bit crooked. We'll straighten that up a touch. And then the final shot I put into the sneak peek was just a photo of the team. So this is Jason and his wife who owns Zozo Coffee, where I go and get my coffee in the morning, if you guys have seen some of the daily vlogs. Ben and his wife Cyan, and then Tim, one of our friends, and Chris here does all the coffee roasting. So that's it guys, thanks for watching. Like I said, it's just really important that you want to get your photos cropped correctly in camera so you don't have to go through and correct every one. Try and get your exposure consistent. Doesn't have to be bang on, but you just want to make sure it's not going up and down all through the day. It makes it a lot easier when everything is just consistent and you can sync a lot of the day. Other than that, it's just going through using the shortcut keys, like the R key for rotating and cropping, and then the plus and minus to go through and edit exposure. But as you can see, the presets are really made to be a one-click edit and just a real speedy way to bring out the tones and contrast, get some of that filmy color look back into it. But it's more of a timeless look rather than something stylized, in my opinion. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you tomorrow with the next video.